Hello boys, this is the second video that I'm doing, as mentioned in the previous video, recording my thoughts, my ideas, my heart for you guys, particularly thinking of your teen years. If for some reason I am separated from you guys, you'll have access to my mind and heart through these videos. The subject that I thought I would talk about in this segment is how I came to both understand multi-generational families and value multi-generational families. Not only understand, but as you know even now, in 2011, at your ages, is a particular calling of mine and our family to not only learn to build a multi-generational family for ourselves, but even equip other families to do so. We are pioneers in this. This is a value, a kingdom value that has been lost to the church that needs to be restored. So, anyway, with that said, I'll just walk through the best I can recall the different pieces that led to this conviction. The first thing I'll say, or at least the first piece of the history part of it, I can't even remember how long ago, but this is a long time ago, sometime in my 20s. And this thought I'm going to share is not unique. Many people think this in some form or other, but anyway, this has to do with, the whole compounding interest idea. Every adult knows, eventually come to learn the time value of money, and that compounded money makes more money over time. What's the word? Not progressively, exponentially. So, so the idea that, well, hey, if in this our culture today, the way it's manifested is usually just one lifetime. A man, husband and wife, put their money away so that they'll have, over 40 years of working or whatever, they'll have money for the retirement. Well, of course, who says you just need to limit that to a lifetime? It occurs to many people. It's the more time, the more compounding. If our grandparents or great-grandparents put away resources and assets in their time specifically for future generations, the amount of compounding is exponentially greater because of the more time. So the question in my mind then is why don't more families do this? So that is an idea that occurred to me in my 20s, and somewhere back in my mind is well, my family, I should do that. But of course, like a lot of things, it just kind of slips under the radar, or practically, I think you just don't have enough margin resources to meaningfully get started. Anyway, I can't remember all the thinking there, but that has been an idea in my mind. So the economic component of that's a multi-generational thinking. At the time, it was really just limited to that financial component. Then, and again, I can't remember the details of the years, what year it was. I would say this was at least 5 years ago. I'll say about 5 years ago, so maybe 2006. And again, I can't remember even the origin behind why I picked up this book, what I was thinking. But I picked up a book called Family Wealth, Keeping It in the Family by James Hughes. James Hughes Jr. And I will do not only another video segment just on the principles of that book and James Hughes, whatever you want to call it, philosophy or idea of family wealth. I'll do multiple videos on that, so I don't have time to get into that there. But let's see if I can summarize as best as I can. Here we're at 5 minutes in. I want to try to wrap this up before 10 minutes if possible. Shirt sleeve to shirt sleeves proverb. His book addresses that phenomenon. The rags to riches back to rags again. It's universally, in all cultures and all time, there's a tendency that generation that builds wealth, by the third generation it's already dissipated. And his James Hughes basically addresses the reason why that happens is preserving family wealth is a matter of family governance, a family on a common mission, all these things. And typically, unfortunately, families that do produce wealth don't pass on the values of things necessary to the preceding generations to be able to preserve that wealth. Again, a lot more I'll say about that later, but I was very inspired by this idea that I realized you can't just, a father who begins to build wealth, just start up a trust fund and hopefully that, or build wealth and expect his grandparents or grandchildren, great-grandchildren, to be able to benefit from that without a spiritual, missional component, a cultural component, passing on, building a family culture and passing that on. So I was motivated by that. Again, that was about 5 years ago. So let me now bring up to the next piece. This is probably about maybe 3 years ago. Something that really released me into multi-generational families was participating in well, we use the term midrash, which is the Jewish kind of Socratic dialogue discipline, training that was done by Jeremy Pryor that he labels family team building, which is, okay, I'll just briefly describe that and then go give a context before this training. Multi-generational, or he just calls it family team building, which my label, this is multi-generational family building is how I like to call it. Basically, he described the difference between the Hebrew mindset, or the Toraic, from the adjective of Torah, with the Western mindset. And you can see the Eastern mindset from the Western mindset. And how he basically made an argument, what we call Old Testament, more specifically Torah, does teach multi-generational family principles, and that Christians should be adopting that cultural value, and that rather our culture has adopted Western values instead, Western values of individualism. There is no more multi-generational thinking. In the limited time I have here, I just want don't want to have this take on too long. These segments, I wanted to get the contrast of where I was before this training. Just revealed how much I was a modern Western father. And I'll talk more, again, this is another subject I'll talk more about in another video. But personally, the way God has made me, I'm very ambitious. I'm one of these, I don't know if you want to call it type A, I don't know what labels to give it, but I want to accomplish so much. And again, you'll see in other videos, I'm an intellectual. There's so many things I want to study. I want to have a lot of alone time, a lot of projects. I've experienced family life up until this weekend where we had training on family teams, as my personal ambitions were competing with both family values that I had, as even desires with family. Particularly, I saw and I'll give this confession, and I cry and weep over this at times, remembering this, because it really is a shame. But I viewed you guys, not so much you personally as individual boys, but children, as competing with my time. And you can see, well, in one sense that's true, but anyway, this was a great source of stress and conflict in my life. That's how you guys competing for my time, and even competing for, I wouldn't say even my money, but I think like it's like a drain on the family. Having the idea of having more kids. It was, right now there's 4 of you guys. So we'll see if the Lord blesses us with more children. I thought, more kids, that just drains the family resources. We can't do as many things if we have more kids. So this idea of competing with time, energy, and money was a constant source of conflict and stress, and even conflicting values. So that was, and I can go into more of that, but that was one of the major sources of stress and incompatibility in my life. Family teams building. Here is what, if I see if I can articulate this and remember it right, that released me. Jeremy showed us how the Hebrew Toraic mindset thinks multi-generationally. How do I explain this? Well, this won't be the perfect way of articulating it. It'll have to do for now. I'll say this. The ambitions in my heart and my mind are actually, they're too big for me to complete in my own lifetime. What the training did was show me that fathers, you have worked in your family that will be passed on to your descendants and will be magnified in the future. Basically, I saw that all my ambitions, rather than family competing for them, I now saw that I was a steward in my lifetime to take all these ambitions the Lord has given me, and rather than needing, or that I can complete all of them in my own lifetime, there's elements where I can build that into my family, where it will expand exponentially in ways I can't even do in my own lifetime. So anyway, that was one thing that released me to multi-generational families and absolutely freed me from this conflict between a Western family, an idea of fatherhood, and a Hebrew biblical way of thinking. The other element that I'm thinking right now is this idea of Western ideas of family really are at odds with the nature of a man and father. Men need adventure. We're empire builders, kingdom builders. The Western mindset, without a multi-generational family mindset, that impulse, the family doesn't have any outlet for it. It is usually just all floating into work, the work life, and other areas. As soon as a father adopts a multi-generational mindset, and it needs to be done in a righteous way, and I could talk more about that later if I would have time, because there's definitely an unrighteous way, but the pure, righteous, God-given impulse to build is released to the family as soon as the multi-generational mindset is adopted. And with that, we'll close up this segment. And as always, I love you, boys.